So potassium chloride seems to have more of an impact than I thought it did. Hey, what's shaking bacon? My name is Bruno Panucci. I hope you're doing well. If you can, hit the little bell notification, smash that button, and make sure you're getting all the notifications, because I think there's a lot of people out there that have been commenting that they're only getting some notifications, if any at all. So I noticed I started taking potassium chloride a few months ago when I was doing saltwater fasts. So all I was having for a day to 2 to 3 or 4 days at a time was just salt water. I was making my own salt water with just pink Himalayan sea salt or Redmond sea salt, as well as potassium chloride. And I noticed a big difference when I was doing that. It was helping me to sleep better. It was helping me to have more energy. If I started to feel tired at all throughout the day, I could just have a little shot of that and I would feel good. Now, it didn't taste good drinking it, but it was still worthwhile because I noticed within 15 to 20 minutes, my energy was right back up. So quite often, my low energy was less about food intake and more about a mineral imbalance. And I've noticed since I've been doing this more consistently, now I haven't been perfectly consistent, but since I've been doing it more consistently in the last few months, I've been feeling better and better. So here's a major contrast. When I used to do fat fasts or water fasts, my sleep would suffer horribly. I would get 4, maybe 5 hours sleep a night. And when I was recently doing fat fasts, I would start getting muscle cramps by the end of the first day, nothing too bad. And then by the end of the second day, it would be really bad. And I couldn't even finish a third day of fat fasting because my muscles would start cramping so bad. There was one time I couldn't even put on my sock because my toe cramped and just separated from the rest of my foot, and I couldn't get it to relax. I couldn't get it to just go back in with the rest of my toes. And I had to wait about 2 or 3 minutes for that to die down. And I noticed always, whenever I would go on any sort of electrolyte supplement or go off any electrolyte supplement, I would usually have to deal with leg cramps during that window of time. And my leg cramps get really bad when they happen in the front of my legs, in my quads or in my hip flexors or adductors. And the adductor muscles are the muscles that typically just women work or bodybuilders are they're the muscles on the inside of your thighs. So that's when you're sitting in a machine and you're squeezing your knees together. So most guys don't want to be caught dead doing that at a gym. And I don't know why, because it's a very practical exercise to do. So anyway, back to the point. These leg cramps were so bad, I would almost go into like shock with the pain. It was so bad. I'd sometimes be on the verge of passing out. Everything would start getting dizzy. I would have really bad leg cramps, and I'm used to leg cramps. I know what leg cramps are like. I've gotten leg cramps in my calves and in my hamstrings and different areas of my body before, but for some reason, those leg cramps were always really bad. The ones in the front of my thighs. And I would start going into like Lamaze breathing. I thought I was the only one that had to deal with that for the longest time, but the chiropractor I worked with for almost 20 years, he had the same problems too. You could see the individual muscle strands fire on their own. So he would just be lying there and you'd see the individual muscle fibers that go up and down the calf. You would see them just fire on their own. Your body's not supposed to do that. That's telling me it's an electrolyte imbalance. I learned that in college. I'm a registered massage therapist by trade. So the difficulty was whenever I was doing these fat fasts, I couldn't do them very long. Now my sleep would start to suffer, but the worst thing was the cramps. The water fasts, yeah, I'd get a little bit of cramps. I was always having salt with my fat fast, and my water fast, I wasn't getting any minerals. So if I had a lot of salt, which there was a lot of salt in my fat fasts, and I was still getting leg cramps and I was still having issues sleeping, and then I started introducing potassium chloride, which was a product you can get called New Salt or No Salt. And if I introduced that product into my day-to-day routine, whether I was putting it on my food or I was putting it in water so that when I was doing these fasts, I was able to get some better balance of electrolytes, my sleep got better and I was getting no leg cramps and my overall energy was better. So I was really impressed with that. But since I stopped with the fasting, I do it every now and then, but more unintentionally. You know, if I happen to go most of a day without eating, I just consider that a longer fast. But I haven't been trying to go out of my way to do fasts lately, but I am going to start that up again just because I was getting some pretty good results with it and I'm starting to plateau again. So I just want to kind of keep some metabolic confusion going. But what I've noticed in the last 2 or 3 weeks is since I've been kind of slacking off on my potassium chloride, my sleep hasn't been as good. I actually got a couple leg cramps in the last couple days, and my energy hasn't been as good. My mood has actually been down, and my mood was doing extremely well. I mean, extremely well, especially since I've been going through a lot of personal issues in the last little while. About 2 to 3 weeks ago, I felt better than I had felt in 15 years, mentally 15 years. And I was doing regular carnivore, no different than I was doing before and no different than I'm doing now. And I'm doing pretty good now. I still get potassium chloride in my diet every now and then. I usually try and have some every day, but the days I'm more consistent with it throughout the day, not just at night or in the morning, I notice after a few weeks started feeling extremely good. And I'm not talking about suffering from mental illness like depression. I've probably been going through a bit of a situational depression, but that's just because my whole world kind of crashed down on me. But aside from that, I was feeling extremely good. And I really got out of that funk when I was getting the potassium chloride and potentially mixed in with the fasting. I always find fasting doesn't only help me with a mental clarity and gets rid of any sort of brain fog I have, but it also makes my joints feel better. So as good as carnivore makes me feel, water fasting makes me feel that much better. It's just like a whole other level, and it typically takes 2 or 3 days to get to that point. Now, the reason why I bring this up is I was talking to a friend of mine, Italian guy on Carnivore, Anna Maria, and she was doing these water fasts, and I was like, just make sure you do it with potassium chloride, because I've noticed it to be a game changer, and it's what inspired this video. So I want you to keep in mind potassium chloride. It's easy to get. You can get it in capsules, you can get it in a raw powder, or you can get it in something that you can just salt on your food. It's like a salt alternative people often use. So you have to keep in mind when you eat our food, let's take a pound of ground beef, 70-30 ground beef, and say ground beef alone, we have about 300 milligrams of sodium in there. Now, we also have almost 1,000 milligrams of potassium. So our body wants to keep a potassium-sodium balance. That's what our kidneys do for us. And I'm going to get into this more in another video because quite honestly, I haven't learned about it in years, and I just want to go over the material before I go into more depth with it in a video that I'll be releasing shortly. But when you think about it, I don't know if you salt your food the way I do. I used to use a ton of salt when I started carnivore, and then I went a month with no salt just to experiment. I had salt once or twice in that whole month. That was it, once or twice in a whole month. And I noticed when I went back to salt, I didn't need as much salt to satiate me. Salt makes our food more palatable. Salt is great to have in your diet, but if we're not balancing that with enough potassium, maybe that's not a good thing. So I've been paying more attention to this since I've been noticing such a difference with the potassium chloride. And I've been thinking about this. I always salt my meat, but do I put potassium chloride on my meat? Well, I've been doing that more lately, and I've been feeling good doing it. And I've been doing it for a while now, and I've just noticed a dramatic difference in how good I feel day to day, physically and mentally. So I want you to keep in mind the next time you're feeling a little weak, maybe the next time your energy's a little low, it might not necessarily mean you need food. It might just mean your electrolytes are off. And I'm starting to wonder how often we mix our signals up for electrolytes and hunger. So they always say drink water if you're hungry, or even have a little pinch of salt on your tongue if you're starting to get hungry or you're not feeling well, maybe you're feeling a little weak, and to try those things to help balance your energy. Do you try that with potassium chloride? We're getting lots of salt already in our diet, but we're not getting enough potassium to balance that out. So keep this in mind. Different food sources have different levels of potassium. I'm going to go over this in another video in the near future as well, when I go over the potassium sodium pump in our body and how we always want to keep a balance. So I hope you found this video informative. Hope you appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Take care. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate you tuning in. Take care.